welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann, and you can call me H.
My name's Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q. H, is there anything you want to tell me?
You say that in such a way that makes it sound like you're setting up for something specific. I don't know what that is, though. I'm not yet on the same page, but I want to get there.
Okay, well, I'm a big follower of a lot of tech employees, and one of them is members of the group Black Girls Code. I'm doing some volunteering work for them, and one of the members of Black Girls Code tweeted out that they are. Angie Jones specifically tweeted out that she is putting together a little class to teach people about an automated testing tool. And I'm just going to read the description here.
Okay.
Created by Microsoft, Playwright is an open source browser automation framework that allows JavaScript engineers to test their web applications on Chromium, WebKit, and Firefox browsers. Has this been a plant the whole time? Because you were playing the long game. You were playing a long game here.
Yeah, gosh, that would have been a very long game. Is this a commercial product, or is this just something that they're doing as part of like a...
I think it's a tech, it's because it says it's open source, so I think it's just a technology, and it is luckily... Playwright, the classical.
Wait, but that's not even the way that you spell playwright, like the people who write plays. Like yeah. Playwright is spelled Playright. Am I right about that?
I think so. I've sent you the link. And
Wright is like Phoenix Wright.
Yeah. So we have yet a third interpretation of Playwright floating out there and attached to Microsoft. It's really sloppy marketing on our part or their part or something.
We should reply to the tweet with the podcast Twitter and just be like, "Hey, sounds like a great idea."
Yeah. I think that's
love the name.
I might do that exact thing.
I'm doing good. You know, we just put our next gen consoles out for pre-order, and of course it's a bit of a kerfuffle as with every console launch, but they're out there. People are gonna be playing on their big hefty new boxes or their little tiny new boxes this holiday season. So
I secured one. I got my hands on a Series X here.
You got a Series X, very nice. I got a PS5 from Amazon, so of course it's not yours until it ships, but yeah, I feel pretty good about it.
I got mine from the Microsoft store. It was surprisingly one of the better experiences today, but I'm always troubled by this. I don't know if you try and do any of this as a consumer, but my wife has really done a lot to link me a lot of things and sent me a lot of information about, ethical consumption. And there's really no ethical consumption in capitalism and in the world that we have. But,
right.
If I can, I'm really trying to curb just blindly going Amazon first. And so I make Amazon now a kind of backup option for me. And one of the things that, I'm doing it, but I don't know if I'm moving the needle because is Best Buy or, Target, certainly not Walmart anymore, ethical or non-ethical than Amazon. But I guess I felt like, and I mean, Microsoft has defense contracts, so I'm giving somebody money that might misuse it, but I feel good going straight to the company that's making the thing.
I think Microsoft tends to be, at least their public image, is a lot more positive than Amazon's. I feel like any company that size, if they were really doing something terrible, it would get out.
Yeah.
You hear so
Either
much coming from
wouldn't.
Amazon of just here's an atrocious thing that Amazon did today.
Yeah.
And it's even if they're trying to keep the lid on the PR, which I think at this point, they don't even bother anymore. They're just whatever, we are the evil corporation, but you need us. We don't need to hide it anymore. But I feel like Microsoft, the only, the big PR messages you hear about, the company culture anyways, are always we are going water positive and we're going to be, carbon neutral by this and this year. And it's yeah, you know what? If terrible things were happening, then they would probably make themselves known.
I agree with that, or at least I would hope so, that we'd have the systems in place to do that. And I really love, big Bethesda news yesterday with Microsoft as well. I love to follow the the now only occasional account, ex-CEO Kaz Hirai on Twitter.
Yeah,
and I think he tweeted out something to the tune of Microsoft is now shipping as many PlayStation 5 exclusives as Sony is, which I really love. But 2020 is proving to be a strange year, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, gosh, that I got to say that Bethesda news was news to me as well when I woke up that day. That was not something that I was privy to beforehand. So it was surprising.
Yeah, that when a company can even surprise its employees, I always think that's like the most exciting thing, because it puts you in a position of just a fan of the industry for a moment and like, whoa, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's not the acquisition that I would have chosen to make myself, but I'm glad that, we're taking steps out there, and it sounds like already Microsoft as a whole is already kind of incorporating a couple of their other technologies in ways that aren't just, we want the people who built Oblivion, it's like there is some like kind of back channel stuff that seems to be, useful. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know.
Exciting.
But let's get into some video game pitches of our own. I'm going to be going first today, and what I want to bring, actually following up pretty nicely from what I pitched last week. Last week I pitched a game that was based on GeoGuessr, in which you played a version of that, but in a flight simulator type setting. And today I want to do something that's kind of similar. I want to, this one's kind of inspired by mini motorways in a way, where you have to kind of route little roads and highways and stuff to try to connect houses and buildings, whether they're shopping centers or industrial centers or whatever, just to try to, it's a follow-up to Mini Metro. It's all very minimalist, very pretty to look at, and just a very satisfying kind of town builder as you're trying to kind of build the infrastructure of the transportation in the city. But all of the maps are based on real cities, but only in as much as like the water and the mountains will be in the right place, because obviously you're building the roads and buildings as you go, so there's not like those landmarks to base anything off of. And it always kind of struck me as like, why are they bothering with real cities if you're getting such like a minimalist perspective of the cities? And who's going to recognize the shape of the lake necessarily? Like if they could put it in Seattle, I probably wouldn't recognize it. But anyways, I was thinking like, what if two players are given kind of geographic aspects of a city and have to guess what it is? Just rivers and freeways first, and then it starts kind of populating buildings. So kind of every few seconds, kind of like in a certain, I want to say You Don't Know Jack, previous You Don't Know Jack games, they would have certain questions where it's like, they would start you off with kind of a hard question, then they would like pop up after 5 seconds, like a clue that make it a little bit easier, and then just kind of keep going from there. First one to guess the correct city ends up winning. So I'm going to put that out there and see what we can do with it.
This also has vibes of there's this kind of classic image game where you start in very close and you keep zooming out.
I don't know if I've seen this. Is this a old computer game or something?
I don't know if it's a specific computer game, but it's like from old game shows or I think even GameScoop on IGN had played it for a while. They're zoomed way into a video game thing, and only, it might be 16 steps out that they go maximum, but, by step 3, generally might have a good idea as to what it is. I'm trying to think about that, of course, like, does the thing where you get more and more of more and more context, right? Because the image itself becomes more and more legible, but you're saying start with a highly legible but isolated object and then build in clues from there.
I mean, you could even do kind of like a travel through time kind of thing where maybe you start with like a map of a city from like the 1700s before it was settled. You just get the kind of natural environment, and then it kind of like ticks forward year by year as, people start kind of settling in and colonizing, and, obviously like the lay of the land of the city changes, but there are certain kind of city centers that kind of remain consistent throughout history.
I almost wonder if if you can guess a location kind of close by, if there's almost a hangman-like mechanic where, you're kind of crossing off geographic zones or something on a little map. Or are you imagining this as a little bit more like multiple choice sort of like, is this Fresno? Is this Tempe?
Not sure. Wonder if like maybe it is something where you'd have to kind of like freely type in the answer in a keyboard, which would, maybe be a little bit unfair to people who hadn't themselves lived in Albuquerque. But you could also do kind of the GeoGuessr style where you have to kind of click on a map and then whoever clicks closest. So if you generally know, oh, this is Houston, I know generally where Houston is on a world map, I'll, click in that general area. And if the other person truly doesn't know, then I'm going to be closer.
I do like the idea of, instead of like listing out words or listing out like even a full, US map or whatever, that you give someone like a bundle of connected states. And as you select like areas in those connected states, they almost Minesweeper style kind of like X out themselves in a little bit of the surrounding area. So, okay, it's not around there. Well, this is the only other place where I think there's like a major body of water or something. We haven't seen a Minesweeper like sort of reveal mechanic in a while in games, maybe only in Minesweeper.
Yeah, that's a good question. How's that reveal mechanic? I mean, I don't like it in Minesweeper. It feels extremely inconsistent, and like just the pacing of Minesweeper is just all over the place. Like your first click could unveil 3/4 of the entire board, or it could unveil like a 9 square radius, and it's just like whatever. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, I definitely think that at minimum, like you could eliminate an entire state, right? And as states get eliminated, like you do have to narrow in on where it is in a particular state. I'm trying to think about location-based games, and I know we were talking about GeoGuessr earlier. I wonder if there's if there's a mechanic where you can kind of like rotate the thing, like potentially you don't actually even show it at it's not necessarily at an angle that it appears on a map. So somebody kind of has a like, can you guess where it belongs and can you guess its rough rotation, and dropping it in like a puzzle piece into a spot, and then you could almost say like, where does this landmark end up in this state? If you can kind of move around like a cursor the landmark and rotate its placement.
It's kind of fun as well. Like, yeah, gosh, if you were given, if you think about like Google Maps or Bing Maps or whatever, where they'll have kind of the gray box buildings of that kind of represent the height and shape of all of the different buildings. It'd be kind of fun to be given a collection of those and have to kind of place them throughout the city. Of course, no one's going to, unless you like really know a city, you're not going to get them all exactly right, but it'd be kind of fun to just kind of like, just try to, see who gets the closest as far as like, you can kind of get a sense of where the downtown is. And there are certain landmarks like, the Space Needle, that one definitely goes right here in Seattle Center. There's the St. Louis Arch, I know where that goes, and you can kind of start building out from there. It'd be kind of fun to kind of puzzle, like geographically reconstruct building. I don't know what the term for that would be. Geographic isn't correct. That's more of kind of a land formation type of thing. But anyways, to try to reconstruct cities.
I even love the idea of once you place these things around, having, giving the multiple choice question of like, now what is the name of this monument once you place it? And then give someone like a map browser that contains all the locations, but like the most popular incorrect name of all the landmarks. So we can, browse the Tower of Liberty or stuff like that.
Yeah, I like I like games that are kind of played from like a top-down perspective, like you're looking in a map. Like if we were just kind of opening up the idea a little bit further, like what more can we do? Let's say we're kind of building like a mini game collection here. Like what other things, kind of creative and fun things can we do with a kind of a top-down bird's eye map-like perspective.
One of the things that might be kind of fun is imagine this WarioWare style mini game where you are, even if you drop the map, you could be like, here's 3 icons, and maybe it's an icon of, the pyramids, the Great Wall of China, and we'll use the Statue of Liberty. Sure, three things, and then you say, arrange these from east to west. And you're just kind of swapping around 3 objects, and you've always got to kind of be thinking about, oh, wait a second, oh, that thing's in, oh, wow, Egypt is, west of, X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, interesting. Like, if it could kind of compress the world map down onto like a single axis, like a timeline in a way.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because I think that would be fun, right? Because teaching things like geography is not just about, it's not just about like rote memorization, but rather like having a sense of directionally where things are from each other. And then you could even say like, okay, the center point is China. Now arrange it from the stuff that's east to west. So, something like that.
Let's go ahead and close that one down. Let's give it a name.
What if I feel like Atlas or does Geo get in there? Were you going to say Atlas Shrugged or something?
There has to be some sort of a play on that.
Yeah. Maybe you flip it and you just call it the Shrugging Atlas because people are just kind of guessing.
What about, okay, here we go. If this was kind of a WarioWare style collection of micro games, it could be called Random McNally.
Random McNally?
McNally, like Rand McNally, the company that put out all those software-based maps and stuff from back in the day.
You just rebooted my whole brain, dude. Yeah, that's great.
It's a bit of a deep cut for those of us who grew up on Windows 95.
I was going to say, that's up there with like Sierra Pinball for me, so.
Yeah. Okay, I think that'll do. Let's go over to your pitch. What are you bringing us today?
I'm thinking about the way that survival games that have like a mining mechanic are very much just like taking a pickaxe, hitting a rock, and watching an animation play out over the course of maybe, a second, half a second. And I'm wondering, what if to have a mechanic in survival games, or maybe base a whole game around this, but a mechanic of you have to set up little kind of nano machines on resource nodes, and then those machines you actually have to kind of go in and literally play maybe a tricked out version of Brick Breaker to chip away at minerals and actually extract special rare minerals from inside of these things. So you're actually playing these Brick Breaker levels inside of these machines, and perhaps as you collect resources, sell them and get more money, you can upgrade the machines, which is the equivalent of maybe partially or completely automating your Brick Breaker game, or giving you expanding the size of the Brick Breaker tile until basically it's bouncing back all the balls pretty much automatically.
Very cool. Let's start the clock there. So by Brick Breaker, I assume we're talking, let's make sure we're on the same page, because this is a
Ricochet?
Yeah, I was thinking like a Breakout or Arkanoid.
Yes, we are on the same page.
Cool. That's a game where like everybody knows what it is, but like it has so many names.
Right. Yeah, so I guess the visual for listeners only is the game with the tiles, the ball, and the little paddle down that moves left and right at the bottom that bounces the ball around and slowly chips away at the things. But I was almost imagining, for whatever reason, like, I think that there's probably a version of Arkanoid or something that exists where this is true, but rather than do it just at the bottom, maybe have like a hexagonal space or something where you're very organically able to trace around with your, say a right joystick or something.
Something else that I think of when you bring up hexagons or pentagons or whatever, is that oftentimes games, I think the first time I saw this was in one of the Pokemon games maybe, or gosh, it must have been. But most recently in Death Stranding, where like stats of a character will be like listed in a like pentagon pattern, and then like one of the edges will grow like based on how proficient the character is in that stat.
Yeah.
So your attack stat can grow up, and then the whole shape kind of skews to that side. You know what I mean?
I don't know what the name of that is.
It's a weird kind of graph, but Excel probably has it.
I actually, okay, wait a minute. Wikipedia might be answering me. I think it's called a radar chart. But
Okay.
yeah, you can imagine it basically allows kind of growing along an axis and having related things to it. I actually think a lot about that format when I think about any one product or person and their strengths and stuff, and how like we're all just emphasis on different parts of that spider graph.
I don't like that format. I never really have. I think like I just have a lot of problems with it. I think one is that it's difficult because it's not like a bar chart or like a line graph where everything is on the same axis and it's really easy to compare which one is higher than the other one.
Right.
Like they're all going off in different directions. You can't directly compare them side by side. It also like in line charts, like there's the idea of kind of like a continual, they're not discrete points, they're kind of a continuum. And so, the kind of gradient in between the two lines means something. It's to say, we took these 2 points of data. If you put an input that's between the two of them, you can expect to end up between the two outputs.
Yeah.
Whereas in those types of like radar charts, like I understand what the points on the very tips mean. I don't know why they're connected in any way.
Yeah. And if it's not well designed, right, then maybe there's not even any connection between them. But like that is, I think, the visual and one of what I think the strength of it, and maybe we can incorporate this into the game in some way. What I think it sells best is to show that one or two things are being emphasized beyond or more so than other things, and not just like a like way. It's just a quick sense of like, hey, you're heavy over here, but you're very low in this other area. It could be visualized in a lot of other ways. But
anyways, I was thinking like, you were kind of describing a weirdly shaped paddle. It'd be interesting if it can kind of change shape as you're, battering stuff around depending on what you do with it. And you have to kind of take that into account. I recently, not to get entirely off topic here, but there's a game that has been on my radar for a little while, and I recently tried it out like within the last month or so because it is in the Humble Trove right now. If anyone's a Humble Choice, they call it now, not Humble Monthly any longer, Humble Choice subscriber, you get access to a Humble Trove, which is a collection of a large collection of games. So you get like DRM free downloads of, which is really nice. But anyways, one of the games in there was called Draconoid. I've never said it out loud before. It's a nice looking word, but it's not fun to say. But it's kind of like Arkanoid or Breakout, but you draw your paddle, and so the ball is going to bounce up and then, hit the blocks, bounce back into this zone where like if you let it pass behind you, then you end up losing a point. But you essentially just kind of freely draw your paddle, just like it was, the Okami brush or something like that. And it bounces it back kind of based on the trajectory of the line that you drew. I thought it was a very kind of clever way to interpret that idea.
It says here that it was also a Humble original, so maybe they published it. But I think that's cool. I wonder if there's I've been playing some Gears of War lately, and Gears of War has the Fabricator, and the mechanic with the Fabricators, you need to defeat enemies or whatever to gain power, and then you can use power. It's essentially like a currency to spend on things. But I wonder if you do sort of the Draconoid, Arkanoid setup, but something about destroying the bricks is what's earning you currency, or maybe drawing your paddle is spending currency or something like that.
It's an interesting idea. So you always got to stay kind of ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And then, if you are willing to save up, potentially you could just do the, maybe this is a mobile game. We just finger trace across the entire screen and can really ensure that you won't miss the paddle.
Feels like there's the possibility to kind of accidentally undo a lot of progress that you've made, and that's never it's never that fun. You know, I want to save
Yeah.
people from at least that kind of humiliating experience.
What do we think about, I guess why we haven't really talked about almost the sense of you're chipping away at a mine or a node of a resource, and that maybe there's a limited amount of time that you can get to it, and you have to play this mini game. Maybe you get, let's use the Tony Hawk 2-minute limit. In that 2 minutes, you can choose if you're going to sort of try and break a vast array of bricks and all of kind of the surface level ones, or if you're going to try and really target a specific area and get deep into the node so that you can extract maybe a more valuable resource, but you're going to have to spend a lot of extra time and effort to really position your paddle to hit your sort of miner circle so that it gets in where you need it.
There's another game I wanted to highlight. It's a mobile game called Hold Down, HOLEDOWN. It's pretty kind of fun and addicting. It kind of sounds like what we're doing here in a way, where it's kind of like a mine shaft in a way that's full of kind of weirdly shaped blocks, and you're trying to kind of descend downwards. You have a certain number of like little worms that you can kind of like, you know, flick and send in a certain direction downwards, and you try to get them to bounce around, you know, the blocks as much as possible. You know, you want to destroy the blocks, and yeah, it's very kind of satisfying, very addicting, and you try to get as deep in the hole as you can, and then buy better worms.
I also think there's something to the very surface level of it, and something that I've always wanted to see some kind of revival of is, and maybe we do it with this game, but Snood. I loved Snood.
I know that one.
Snood was just a game where you had all these weird kind of very 90s faces, and you know, there's many games like this where you kind of have a center rotating pivot point that you can shoot out of different faces, essentially trying to match three in a row, four in a cluster. But if you could get a certain group at a certain angle, it would also destroy the sort of layers underneath it or above it in this case.
I see. Yeah, looking at it now, it looks like a bust-a-move.
Yes, yeah, very much so. So I think like, yeah, the bust-a-move Snood type of angle, and then you have these, you take some of the numbers of hold down and actually make maybe the points that you're trying to destroy a little bit more resilient. And maybe we just dropped the whole survival game pretext at all, and it seems like we've got a good little app destroy 'em, Arkanoid hold down, Snood, bust a move going on.
Okay, well let's at least we're kind of out of time, but let's find a way to tie it together. It seems like we've done a lot of kind of like bouncing around different types of games. So let's at least try to kind of come up with a thesis statement of what this is at the end here.
I think if we have a mechanic where you are either through flicks or traces trying to launch a limited number of resources to destroy certain puzzles of bricks, if you will, of whatever type or design they are, you can earn those bricks as spending currency to upgrade yourself in different ways and have a better chance of deploying your weapon to more effectively destroy the bricks as you kind of journey down into a mine shaft.
All right, I think that'll do it then. Let's
some backflips on that one. Huh?
Let's give it a name.
Downhole. No.
How about Mineswiper?
Mineswiper. Mineswiper is pretty good. I was gonna, if it wasn't Mineswiper, I was gonna do something like Frack Attack, but it should have one of those arcadey names. I like Minesweeper or no Mineswiper.
You're right.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I like it. All right, let's go on to the community and see what you have written in this week. This piece of listener correspondence is coming from Promoshope, who says, make a mini version of Playwright, the video game idea podcast. Hey, I came across your podcast while browsing for technology podcasts. Would you be interested in making mini podcasts? Please contact me by replying to this mail if you'd like to learn more about GIFcast. It's a free service to easily create mini podcasts and share thoughts, ideas quickly. All right. That's something that I'm going to guess is an automated mail sent out to a lot of podcasts. I apologize to the fine folks at Promoshope if you are actually active Playwright listeners, but I think the combination of calling out the Playwright title with the description, with the descriptive subtitle in the topic of the email, labeling of us as a technology podcast indicate that this is probably just pulling metadata. But you know, lemonade out of lemons. Let's see what we can make of an advertisement and see if we can make a cool game out of it. So we're going to start the clock there.
I'm going to start off by saying it's not a terrible idea. The idea of a mini podcast. Now, you and I would probably save ourselves a heck of a lot of work. I don't know if it would make any listener happier, but if this was just a one pitch per week show, boy, oh boy, maybe we need to move to that format. One pitch per episode, but we do like 2 episodes a week or something like that.
It's true. We'd still be, I mean, we can kind of open that up to the listeners. If you're interested in switching over to that kind of format, then we're happy to do so. We can at least experiment with it for a little bit. But I think when I sit down to listen to a podcast myself, I like to have something I can kind of like put on and not have to kind of check on the phone every 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
But, who knows? You know, maybe people's habits are different. If it would suit you, the listeners, then write in. We're curious.
What if there was a game? Now we're talking a little bit more about the gamification of something like this. And I love the idea of almost a podcast. I don't know if it would be a podcast pitching platform or game or podcast parody game, but a game in which, or an experience in which groups of people can record just the first couple minutes of a podcast that does not exist and will never exist.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
that's kind of funny as well.
Yeah, you could set up a lot of interesting premises. I feel like people would really be embracing things like specificity of, hey, welcome to the Dogs After 5 p.m. podcast, where we talk about dog ownership and between the hours of 5 and 9 p.m.
I feel like it would be a lot of fun to, basically just kind of have like a random title generator, and you have like 1 minute to record a short podcast, and based on the title that it gives you. And basically, as soon as the title is on screen, it starts playing a theme song. And then you have to, the two of you have to like have a little conversation and get into it just like right off the bat. It's kind of like, in the You Talking You Two to Me podcast and all of these subsequent podcasts that Scott Aukerman and Adam Scott have done. They'll launch into miniature podcasts just based on a catchy phrase that one of them has said. They'll say like, is this an episode of I Love Films? And I think so. And then all of a sudden they're podcasting about films that they've been watching. And that sounds like so much fun. Like that's something that we should do like for a one of the anniversary shows or something like that.
Yeah.
We still owe people an anniversary show anyways. We didn't really end up doing anything special this year.
Because this year is not for special things. This year is only for the
it's been a rough year.
But that's funny. And let's make it hyper modern. And as people have to record their like first couple minutes of a show, we also give them 1 or 2 AI generated fake live chats for them to respond to. A listener being like, or random questions that are written in from the AI bots. Now, of course, the AI can be aware of the generated topic of the show. But I just love the idea of, as someone's going, that thing that you see on Twitch so much, which is a Twitch streamer just kind of glancing over at their chat and just blankly reading something that was typed. Really, you only have a split second to mentally vet the thing. But I just love the idea of kind of having to respond to maybe ridiculous, you can imagine, you don't know Jack style things that are just programmed into to make the podcaster say, and then it could even recognize if they mention a word from it or something and score them.
Yeah, I think a really fun way to do this would be if you are to play it in pairs and the other team has to score you on your performance, or maybe your recording, your 1 minute recording kind of goes out to the cloud and is randomly served to another, a set of players and they have to kind of judge it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a kind of consensus is set to like 3 or 4 people. And then you have to listen to a few before you can get on to the next round of playing yourself.
I wonder.
I do like this. This is good though. I think, if there were ways that we can kind of like encourage the community to be good scorers in a way, where we can encourage them to kind of like rate for, title accuracy. Because, anything that is going to involve community scoring, like if someone just kind of puts on a funny voice, then, that's my frustration with like games like Apples to Apples, where it's like you're setting up jokes. Like I'll craft something that's like, it feels very well constructed, and it's like, oh, this is like a pun off of, this is something that you find in this sort of location. And I'll come away with something I'm really proud of. And then somebody will just like put down like a funny word, and it's like, oh, that one wins because they got the biggest, reaction. But it's like, that's just a funny word. It would be a funny word in any context,
You people don't understand my humor. Yeah, I mean, I was secretly glad that the Cards Against Humanity people were kind of nightmarish, because I always hated that game for that very reason of like someone's like, oh, the priest likes porn, and everyone's like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, this isn't comedy.
Or it's just like, the person who is scoring is like, oh, I love South Park. You put South Park as the answer. I'm going to pick that. It's like, it doesn't mean it's a good joke.
Yeah. Well, what if we did this? What if we just give 4 little ratings? And I know that sounds like a lot of rating to do, but maybe we find some way to make it engaging and easy to just say like how you felt about the host, how you felt about the topic, and maybe how well they responded to, or maybe just an overall, like, would you listen to this podcast? And now you almost would give people like a podcast idea engine of, wow, you know what? There's just something magical about these particular hosts talking about this subject. I could listen to this for at least a few hours.
I think almost more than anything that we've done, this feels feasible, lucrative. Maybe not lucrative, but like it feels like something that people would actually play.
This is
something that wouldn't be that difficult to record, except for the online aspects of it. That's probably a wrench in the mix right there. But like just kind of like a party game that serves you podcast titles, like it doesn't sound that difficult to do.
Yeah, and if like you can even strip it back so that it's not necessarily doing like it only like inserts theme music once it like renders the whole thing out or something, but and it's not like happening in real time. But Twitch is shutting down Twitch Sings. This is what you got to replace it with, baby.
Twitch podcasts.
Yeah, Twitch casts.
Okay, cool. So we've got mini podcast generator. What if you also have to generate the art somehow to go along with it?
Oh yeah, that's cool. I do like the idea of like, actually, you and I haven't even gotten to talk about this, although I'm sure we would be very passionately discuss it. But all the stupid artwork in the new Tony Hawk remake is so good. It's so 90s and it's so gnarly and it's really, really cool. It's that 90s aesthetic of how gross can you make a character look?
Yeah.
And I do like the idea of maybe giving, essentially the equivalent of like the, Diablo banner / Destiny banner designer, clan banner designer thing to very quickly put together like podcast art. It's like you'd have to balance how long you want a play session to be. Like, is it going to be just something that someone's in and out? And maybe you only have 30 seconds. Maybe that's the best thing to do is make everything a 30-second thing. And you almost get I guess it's even longer than Vine. Maybe it's 15 seconds. Maybe we really cut it and just say, hey, can you get an interesting premise out the door in that amount of time? And then a couple clicks and you're into your artwork, and maybe a couple browses for a theme tune, and boom, you've got a tweet-sized podcast that's headed out into the world on a ridiculous premise.
It would, like, if there's at least enough time to kind of have like some level of a conversation. I think if it's just 15 seconds, and there's not really enough time for both people to kind of get their voices heard.
Yeah.
And for this to be kind of a collaborative thing. And, it takes a little bit of time to kind of settle into your groove anyways. So it'd be nice to, it's kind of like that other thing where if you're improving, anyone can improv kind of a silly greeting. But like, if you actually have to, build a character, then like that's a little bit more difficult as well.
Yeah. What? Here's what we could do. This is actually now. Let's borrow from Fallout guys. The way that Fall Guys rather, Fall Guys has that kind of level rotation thing happening. What if we place two unsuspecting hosts into a lobby, and they see the wheel spin and the topic get landed on, and then they see like 2 user questions fill the screen. And then the countdown, 10-second countdown begins, and then you have to kind of hit the ground running. But you can use your lobby time to be like, hey, I'm Mike. Like, how do you want to do this? Do you want to be silly? Do you want to do like an NPR thing? What do you want to do?
That's a lot of fun. We are out of time. Let's close it down. Let's give it a name.
What is like I feel like now there's so many podcast apps and services that anything cast is like.
This could really be, we could just call this Playwright Cast, or some sort of a variation of our own name, since we are apparently not the only ones anymore.
Yeah. What if we called it the Playwright Caster? Because it's creating.
I like it. All right. Let's go Playwright Caster. That was submitted by our faithful listener, Promoshope, or maybe Promo's Hope. I don't know. Anyways, thank you very much for sending that in. We appreciate the earnest video game idea that we've ended up making one of my favorites from it. So very cool. And if you have something that you would like to submit all of your own, then you can do so by going to playwrightcast@gmail.com. You can go to playwrightcast.com/pitch, or you can tweet us at playwrightcast and submit your video game ideas there.
You might be someone who's listened to us for, just a week, or maybe you've been listening since the beginning of the show, and you're like, yeah, but I'd like hearing the ideas, but I can't come up with a video game idea. Send us an email. You can even send us an email and say, hey, I'm not sure, and maybe we can workshop it with you. But if you've ever felt like, man, it would just be so special to hear something that I thought of talked about on a show that I listened to, this is an opportunity to get that done. Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise, and thanks to all the other great shows on the Kane and Rince network, like Playwright, I've done that like 2 weeks in a row now, like Sound of Play, like The Sausage Factory, and like the Kane and Rince podcast.
To take us out of the show today, I have a redacted game for you.
Hopefully harder than I was able to make it for you last week.
We'll see. I have a good feeling about this one. So, welcome to Redacted, the city of Redacted, a place with Redacted that lead anywhere in Redacted, provided you have the proper Redacted. It is a neutral ground and watering hole for Redacted across the Redacted, all under the watchful shadow of the Redacted, the enigmatic Redacted. It is a place where the Redacted is mightier than the sword. Thought defines Redacted, where Redacted has the power to reshape worlds and change the Redacted.
Okay, so we're welcome into a type of city with, you said enigmatic?
Yes.
And so there's some kind of enigmatic leader going on, and watering hole is a very interesting term.
It is, yeah.
And I think the phrase usually is the pen is mightier than the sword, but I wonder if video games would go for something more like the gun is mightier than the sword.
Hardly needs to even be said.
Yeah. Okay, my first guess is I'm thinking about kind of crazy characters in a place where water might feel somewhat special. And I'm going to say Borderlands.
Not Borderlands.
Not
Good guess, though. That one definitely has its fair share of enigmatic rulers casting a shadow over the civilization.
Yes. Okay. Now we're talking about water. We're talking about enigmatic rulers. My second guess, before I get the accolades, I want to take the second guess. Is this BioShock?
Another good guess. There's another one where it's, kind of quote unquote the city of something.
Yeah, and I figured like if it's, the pen is mightier than the sword, then potentially the sort of twist in that game involves language in a way. Okay, I need some awards or metadata or something.
You want let's give the awards first. I feel like the meta score and the awards are going to be pointing in the same direction, so it probably won't be. Do you want platform along with that? I don't know if it's going to be as...
Not yet.
It is the number 7 best platform game of 1999. It is the number 1 most discussed platform game of 1999 and the number 1 most shared platform game of 1999.
Holy cannoli. Okay. Read me the description one more time. I'm sorry.
Welcome to Redacted, the city of Redacted. A place with Redacted that lead anywhere in Redacted, provided you have the proper Redacted. It is a neutral ground and watering hole for Redacted across the Redacted, all under the watchful shadow of the Redacted, the enigmatic Redacted. It is a place where the Redacted is mightier than the sword, where thought defines Redacted, where Redacted has the power to reshape worlds and change the Redacted.
It can reshape. Could I get a 10 and a 0 review?
Yeah. So what I'm finding is that the only 0 is written in French, but there is a 4. The 4 says, I don't like the story setting of the game. Too many undeads. The attempt at humor is slightly cringy for an old game. And a 10 says, let me just read this. Okay. Most complicate story, deep philosophy, outstanding romance game have you ever seen. If you want RPG game with a live world response from your active, this game is number 1 of whole game.
Wow. That's fantastic. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. It seems like the story is important here. It's the fact that it's so old is kind of...
Give you the meta score. It is a 91 from critics and a 9.2 from users.
Oh my God, it's fantastic. Okay, I don't think I know it, so I'm gonna pick. Is this the original Deus Ex?
No, we've actually already done the original Deus Ex.
Oh damn. Okay, I don't think I know this game.
All right, let me see if I can kind of walk you into it a little bit more. Some of these other 10 reviews are mentioning Fallout and Baldur's Gate quite a bit alongside of it, if that helps at all.
Oh.
A few people in here that are considering it to be the best game ever made.
Oh,
so it's
God.
kind of in that tier.
What I'm thinking is, that this might be a game that I have never played.
That could be true. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But I'm familiar with. I'd like to think that I've got some 90s. If you're saying Fallout and you're saying Baldur's Gate, it's a PC game, right? This game is known for being on PC.
Yes, though it has been ported in recent years.
I guess I'm getting my. Oh geez, God, and it's not. It's like Baldur's Gate, but it's not Baldur's Gate. My last guess. This isn't. Gosh, is this a? Oh my God, is this a Might and Magic game? No, it's not. But
it's not. But if that series is related back to D&D, this also is. I don't remember if Might and Magic is related back to D&D.
I don't think it fully is. I'm just, yeah, I don't know. Tell me. Let me know. Let me have it.
Okay, this is the legendary Planescape Torment.
Oh.
Does that mean anything to you? I'm sorry if it doesn't.
No, it doesn't, but I feel like that was the I recall its cover art, which is like the blue dude, right?
Right, yeah.
I know the blue dude, and didn't
mean to ambush you with a game that you would cover.
No, it's fantastic. So I didn't know that this. I guess I didn't know much about it at all. This is like widely known as one of the best games of all time, really.
Yeah, this is a CRPG, and for decades it kind of held the kind of a claim of being like second to none, like pretty much universally agreed upon as being the best written game ever produced. Until, Disco Elysium came around, and now people are kind of like flipping 50-50 between the two. So yeah, it's a CRPG based on the Dungeons and Dragons Planescape area. And I'll read the actual description here. It says, "Welcome to Sigil, the city of doors, a place with gates that lead anywhere in existence, provided you have the proper key. It is the neutral ground and a watering hole for races across the multiverse, all under the watchful shadow of the Lady of Pain, the enigmatic ruler of the city. It is a place where the word is mightier than the sword, where thought defines reality, where belief has the power to reshape worlds and change the laws of physics."
Wow. Yeah, I mean, like it it almost is in the conversation of like isn't Neverwinter Nights kind of in the similar vein of this?
I think it's also based on D&D.
Wow. So is it also, it must be related to, I imagine, Torment Tides of Numeria or whatever?
I always think of that one as Torment Tides of Numa Numa. I think it's Numenera. But Tides of Numenera is a kind of a spiritual sequel in a way. I think it's the same developers that have gone on and since kind of like, I think lost the Dungeons and Dragons license, and so they can't produce another Planescape game, but they produce something else with Torment in the title.
Look at this. I just was like, can I get this on any modern platform? And not only is it on apparently Xbox One, but they're trying to charge $50 for it currently on the digital game store, which seems like too much money for something that came from the 90s. I don't know how much it was enhanced. Wow. Okay.
I've heard mixed things about the enhanced edition based on the platforms that people play it on. There was a Cane and Rinse issue about Planescape Torment, and I think either James Carter or Sean Bell had a really bad time playing it on Switch. I think they encountered a lot of glitches and stuff that I think kind of rendered it in like an unplayable state at some portion of the game.
That stinks.
But if I've never heard anything bad about the PC port. So anyways,
I will tell you this. And during that period of the 90s, I think I was squarely into the, Nintendo 64-ish, Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1 era. And I have a real gap of CRPGs, period, in my back catalog. I've got to fill it out.
I do too. I got in like the first CRPG I think I ever played. And you could like technically argue that like games like Dragon Age Inquisition or Knights of the Old Republic are CRPGs, but I'm talking like, traditional isometric CRPGs. First one I ever played was Divinity Original Sin 2, which really kind of got me into that. Since I've downloaded Crusader Kings 3 and Wasteland 3 on Game Pass. I've been actually over the last week or so played a bit of Desperados 3, which is kind of an Old West themed, stealth focused, real-time strategy CRPG.
Whoa.
But it's really cool. It's like one of those games where it's like you can kind of like, you try to, stealthfully make your way around this kind of Old West world and stay out of vision cones, but it's all turn-based and the game encourages you to save scum as you go. And so it'll actually like display an on-screen reminder if you haven't saved the game in like 1 minute. So you're always supposed to be kind of like taking things kind of like step by step as you go, but it is real time. So it does require some level of execution, but it's just like so satisfying to like set up sniper shots where people aren't going to find the body and you rush over there and hide the body. And, to sneak up on somebody from behind outside of their vision cone, or to try to extinguish a light so that you can sneak by undetected.
I think I also started a Wasteland 3 a little bit, and I started it. I maybe made the mistake of trying to do it co-op over 2 Xboxes because it did not run well, number one, and and it seemed like it was barely operational. That thing must have come in hot. But I understand it's such a good game, and I'm squarely in the space, I think, where these games that are kind of treating save scumming as a novelty, I think we need to just go full user experience on it and just like let me rewind. Let me jump back, 2 turns or something before maybe I made my fatal mistake, then this like stop, save, and reload and reset my game sort of stuff. That stuff feels so dated to me.
In the recent Super Mario Sunshine re-release could really do with save states, since they are emulating it anyways. Like, why not?
Right.
There are some sections of that game that do not hold up.
Nintendo giveth, Nintendo taketh away.
Anyways, that's enough for today. Let's close it down. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you again next week.
Bye.